These last few months have been the markings of a new era in my life, and seeing that 2 countdowns were envisioned and completed within the span of 2 days, like way long ago, I'd say I've been pretty successful in adapting to these new conditions. Honestly, this video was also envisioned in that exact same time span. However, this thing got in the way. That's right. For those of you who don't know, I've been working on a new Discord bot in the past few months, and I kind of forgot about everything else. Sorry about that. Nevertheless, it's honestly been a fantastic experience. Both the bot and the videos, of course. It's something that had been on the back of my mind ever since I started streaming Golden Sun OST. And now, seeing it come to full fruition on my channel as fully fleshed countdowns is just amazing. With that in mind, believe it or not, the last 2 tops were just what I'd like to call the beta tests. This is the real deal, since it will require more than just careful thinking to come up with justifications for each and every entry on this list. So, since there is no 2 without 3, my 3rd countdown revolving around Camelot's prodigal son is upon us all. Golden Sun is a series well known for its storytelling greatness, and one story needs to have some fantastic moments to truly make it stand out as, well, special. And let's just say there's no shortage of those throughout the first 2 installments. It's with that feeling in mind that I decided to bring to you my idea of the perfect Golden Sun countdown idea, that being the top 10 Golden Sun moments. It's honestly kind of insane the amount of really memorable and iconic moments that create the intricate and complex story of the supposed prequels of the franchise. And yes, I said prequels, since Golden Sun and the Lost Age were supposedly to serve as the beginning to an even bigger story. Now, as always, before this countdown begins, there shall be disclaimers ahead. First, I think I need to address the nature of a moment. You see, a moment can have pretty much any given length in the game's story, ranging from a super short cutscene to a whole section of the game. What matters to me isn't the length, but rather the impact of the moment in the franchise. Second, and once again, this list shall be my opinion alone. I'm saying this again because I've been having a blast making these videos, and I know it's just a matter of time before the internet's true nature reveals itself and one person goes on into the comment section saying, "Oh, but you're wrong, see, Isaac should not be #1 because this and that, I'm so smart." Third, I've realized that many people weren't expecting that inside joke on the top 8 Golden Sun protagonists, and they thought it was pretty funny. Well, I do believe you can expect another one this countdown. I don't know why, just a little hint. Finally, once again, I'll be using footage from the same sources as the previously mentioned top 8 Golden Sun protagonists video. So, if you want to support the original creators of this content, go ahead and check out their channels. Alright, I know these were quite the lengthy disclaimers, but I do believe this countdown will be bigger than any previous one so far. So I had to make sure you guys were ready for the unbelievable stuff that's about to unfold. Oh, just one more thing. I might get emotional with some entries, as they really moved me deeply since, you know, Golden Sun relies on its capacity to transmit strong emotions to the player when certain things happen. Oh yeah, and the obligatory spoiler alert, especially for this video. But enough nonsensical stuff. You're here to see my judgment on the most marking moments of the original Golden Sun duology, and that is what I am here to do. Roll the numbers! In a game, introductions are everything. I mean, what's the story going to tell you if you don't even understand your surroundings first, am I right? So, it's only natural that Golden Sun, being the amazing series it is, would have a fantastic introduction, with bright and colorful scenery and characters that are just about going on their normal lives. Right? I take every single word I just said back. Remember back in the Isaac entry on the protagonist's countdown when I talked about the first line of the dialogue of the entire franchise? Yeah. See, this is why his mother wanted him to wake up. Right from the start, when Isaac and his mother, Dora, walk out the door and see Kyle, Isaac's father, standing in the rain watching as the elders strike to stop the Mount Aleph boulder, you know that it's not gonna have the most happy ending. After that, when you're tasked to go to the Plaza of Vale, you meet up with Garrett and pretty much power through most of the village, with about 50% being inaccessible to you. However, you then reach Felix's and Janice's home, finding out that Felix himself has fallen into the river. Ignoring all sense of logic, Isaac's parents, as well as Felix's parents, determine that they can't rescue Felix on their own, and send Janice south to the plaza. Dora then asks for the help of Isaac and Garrett, sending you to meet Jenna. When Isaac returns with everyone, including Garrett and Jenna, Dora states that they're just in time, as usual. Well, that's what she thought at least, since the boulder comes crashing down and lands on the river in which everyone was, including Jenna's entire family and Isaac's father, Kyle. While the people who survived the fall of the boulder stand motionless, it's up to Isaac to go and get help, since nobody else was even capable of moving. Well, except for Garrett, who follows him into what I would consider probably a slaughter. Upon the arrival at the plaza, Isaac stumbles upon the talk of the main antagonists of the first game, whose names weren't revealed yet. He begins to eavesdrop and it was going perfectly. Well, until Garrett's idiocy made him stand out as he called out their position. Of course, the villains deliver the proper beating to our heroes and they fall unconscious, leading to the beginning of the game. So, what makes this moment stand out in my opinion? It's quite simple actually, the setting. The whole atmosphere formed around the prologue of the original Golden Sun is spot on, giving the player the feeling that something's not right and that you must hurry up to save everyone. Its weak lighting, combined with the thunderstorm effects, really add up to the drama that would become this moment, as well as its theme, which, by the way, is the theme that has been playing during this segment. I don't believe there is much else to add to this, other than, obviously, this being the moment that kickstarted the entire franchise. I owe much to this moment as a Golden Sun fan, and I'm sure most of you do too. So, the number 10 spot brought gloom and a touch of fear, right? How about I drop that whole thing down for some other feelings, like accomplishment? Now that sounds like a fantastic idea. For that reason, I shall not delay the number 9 spot any further. Oh yes, I know this feeling. It's beautiful. If you were like me during your first ever series playthrough of the original Golden Sun duology, then you know how much of a freaking pain finding all 72 Djinn actually is. And seeing them all being released in order to gain access to the inner sections of Anema's Sanctum is a treat to the eyes of those who know the pain. Once you have access to the teleport synergy, you can access a new section of Anema's inner sanctum that was previously inaccessible to you via teleport pad. What you find in there are 72 plates engraved in the ground, divided by groups of 18 and by elements, those being Mercury for water, Venus for earth, Jupiter for air, and Mars for fire. But you already knew that. At first, it might get a bit confusing as to what the hell is going on in that room. I mean, the only door in there is locked, and it would seem like all there is to do in there is grab a rare item from a chest, which isn't even unlocked from that position. But then, you step onto one of the pads. The particle effects start appearing, and the holographic projection of a genie from the element you chose appears, as 18 balls of light, correctly colored to match the element, fill in the other, smaller pads. After that, one of the torches lights up above the locked door. Repeating the process 4 times, you get the moment I like to call the Djinn ritual. It is, without question, one of the most satisfying moments in the entire duology, since it means that all the deviation you did, all those hours searching for the little bastards paid off. It wasn't just something you got to get stronger. And after the ritual is over, you get access to one of the most overpowered summons in the game, Charon. In fact, it's so overpowered that the final optional boss uses it as a regular attack option. So, bottom line, this scene makes it to the list because it means that the side quest of gathering all Djinn was worth it. Believe me, the first time I got there, I almost jumped around out of joy for knowing that my frustration wasn't wasted on the cute little fellows. And it was an amazing feeling. Already unloading all sorts of emotions onto the scene now, are we? Well, good thing that I'm covered for the next few entries, I believe. With that, it's back to intensity we go. I seem to really like these two now, don't I? Well, truth be told, I still prefer Saturos and Minardi, but that's not what I'm discussing right now, so let's get the small talk. So, at this point in the Lost Age, you're just roaming around freely since you finally found yourself a suitable ship in which the owner allows you to pretty much go wherever your heart desires. That is until a very important moment in the story, the second return to the peaceful town of Madra. When you head on over to tell the mayor that you successfully recovered Pierce's black orb, you spot a red-eyed woman with somewhat red hair. Huh. That's strange, I could swear she mentioned Minardi. Anyways, after the talk, the mayor calls Felix out loud, and then the woman starts talking with the party, stating that she was searching for Minardi. Sheba, being an idiot for the first and only time in the series, flat out admits that Isaac and his party killed both Saturos and Minardi. Unfortunately, Jenna couldn't shut her up in time. After the group spills the beans, she disappears and tells you to hurry up and light the remaining elemental lighthouses. However, it is upon the arrival at the village of Champa, home of Briggs and Aelio, that things start to take a dark twist. As soon as you see the smug picture of a certain Mercury adept, you know you're in big trouble. When you think that it is just him coming to tease you again about how you suck at your supposed job, which is lighting the elemental lighthouses, in comes the woman from before, which is named Karst, and just so happens to be Minardi's sister. As you know how the Fire Clan of the North works, there's not one without the other, and in comes Saturos' counterpart, Agasio, a hulking fire adept. And guess what? Alex brought them just to intimidate you into doing your job faster and better, focusing less on the previously mentioned freedom you had. Although that scene is full of high-stakes tension, with Agasio and Karst wanting to do it in their own way, Alex does provide a bit of comedy into the situation, comparing the current duo with Saturos and Minardi, and pretty much telling them that they suck at complex puzzles. A really good scene that actually leaves the player on edge, without any further idea of what to do next. Well, except grind for the inevitable fight that's going to happen with those two. With all that, it's a moment that has a significant impact to the story of the Lost Age, since it transmits to the player exactly what they should expect from the main antagonists of the second installment, as well as the attitude that Alex has towards everyone around him. Really well done. It appears that the last entry focuses a lot on the introduction of Mars adepts, as in fire adepts. So, how about we go full IGN mode for number 7? Oh, so that's what you meant by going full IGN mode. A water adept appearing at the elemental lighthouse of water. Right after you reach the area of Mercury Lighthouse, midway through the original Golden Sun, you run into Saturos and Minardi's group, which included the prisoners Jenna and Craven. When you try to save them, however, you are stopped by Saturos, who quickly challenges you to a battle to stall your progress, while Minardi ditched with Felix and took their prisoners with them. After a serious battle in which Saturos single-handedly caused lots of trouble to Isaac's party, even though he was weakened by the lighthouse's lit beacon, Ivan asks what happened for him to be so weak. That is when a familiar-looking Mercury adept comes from behind the light. Mia's reaction is immediate, looking surprised and, at the same time, sincerely angry at him, asking him if he realized what he had done. Alex simply answers with vague, yet very revealing phrases. Alex explains the Adepts' alignments with the elements, stating that both he and Mia were members of the Mercury clan, and therefore water adepts. He also explains that the reason Saturus failed to use his full power resides in the power of Mercury Lighthouse. In all honesty, in this speech, Alex explains a lot of the nature of the Golden Sun franchise, including the true nature of Synergy, although it was extremely subtle. But, as you all know, all of Alex's monologues have a second intention that best suits his interests. Always. This time, by the time he's answered your questions, Saturus has had time to heal up from your battle. In a sense, Alex was only stalling for time until his Mars buddy got his mojo back. After that, they both leave, leaving Mia in an emotional turmoil. What I find interesting about this scene is, well, everything. For starters, the simple fact that it is Alex, of all people, to explain to you the inner machinations of alchemy is astonishing. I mean, let's be real here, this guy's a douchebag. All he cares about are his own twisted dreams of ruling over everyone and everything, sacrificing people to do so if he has to. So, having him explain that to you is a fascinating turn of events, especially after the stuff we see him pull off at the Elemental Stars room. Like flying. Seriously though, how the hell does he do all that? According to the Golden Sun wiki, he's freaking 18 years old! Anyways, moving on. I'll have more time to rant on about Alex later. The other thing that I really enjoy in this moment is the ambiguity. You know, there was some sort of connection between Alex and Mia once, and it is one that is still very much present. In Jupiter Lighthouse, if you mind read Alex right before the battle with Karst, he's thinking that his desires are getting him closer to fail, since he wants to aid Mia. So you definitely feel some sort of tension between the two. Resuming, there's a lot to take from this moment. Alex's explanations are clear, yet vague, and his relation with Mia is left for speculation. It is believed, however, that they are cousins, which makes the quote from Alex, "Ah well, I can't stay the same Alex you knew forever," all the more interesting. Fantastic scene that gives us a glimpse of the true nature of the real antagonist of the series. So, remember when I said that this countdown wouldn't have any emotional entries for a while? Well... I lied. Badly. To those of you who watched the previously mentioned top 8 Golden Sun protagonists, you know that this actually coincides with the number of Shiba's entry. And also note that this scene is one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the entire series. Probably second only to a moment we'll cover up later. After finishing up at Contigo, the now full party of 8 that would later be known as the Warriors of Vale receives an upgrade to the Lemurian vessel that Felix and his party were using to navigate the Western Sea, allowing it to finally avoid small obstacles, like the stone formation just outside of Ateke Inlet. Once you put that thing flying for the first time, a cutscene plays. At first, it seems like a regular moment of interaction between the characters, with all of them really happy that the ship took off without a hitch. But then, Djinn asks Shiba if everything's alright, since she's been really quiet ever since the group left Jupiter Lighthouse. Shiba then recalls the beginning of the Lost Age, where she refused to tell Felix and company why she needed to go on this quest. You know that something's about to happen as soon as those dots appear below Shiba's picture. She starts off by saying that she thought Jupiter Lighthouse would have the answer to her origins, since she couldn't find another possible place that could provide some evidence towards that very same question. However, as Mia states, she didn't find any answers. Garrett then reminds everyone that Farhan, master of the town of Lalivero, pretty much raised her as his daughter, giving her everything she needed. A home, if you wish. But not even that was enough to get her smiling again. Then, Kraden starts talking. He starts saying that he and Shiba are quite similar in terms of past, stating that his origins are also mostly unknown to him. He also remembers that he was born in a poor village and that Bobby, the ruler of Tolby, saw potential in a young Kraden, separating him from his true parents. Realizing what that meant, Sheba finally understood that she actually got very lucky, seeing that Faden cared for her as he would care for his own child. After that, she says she feels better, and that the group is ready to move on. So, if you realized, this entry and the number 7 spot share a lot of common themes, particularly an ambiguous past. You see, while in the last entry the past revolved around Alex and Mia, this time it revolves around Sheba and Kraden, and I'm glad it does so. Being honest here, I had forgotten about Sheba upon the end of Jupiter Lighthouse, so to see that text box pop up and reading Djinn on it was a welcome surprise. One that didn't last very long though, because as soon as that theme started playing, I knew this game was pulling another emotional moment on me. The added character depth that was Kraden's backstory helped to make this one of my absolute favorite moments in the original duology. I mean, ever since I've heard Bobby mention Kraden in Altmiller Cave, I knew that Kraden wasn't from Vale. Now it all made sense. In the end, it's not hard to understand why this scene made it into the list, much less number 6. It's been a subject of debate within the Golden Sun fandom ever since The Lost Age, and with Camelot's lazy bums not wanting to create a continuation, the best there is to do is speculate. Man, emotions everywhere already. However, it is true that emotions are inescapable in this series. So, how about a little more of that sweet emotional turmoil? Okay, I should probably call this what I normally call it. The Feels Village. Let's start from the beginning. The raid on Soul Sanctum in the previously mentioned prologue of the original Golden Sun. Saturus' raiding party all perished upon the failed attempt, except for Saturus and Minardi. However, they were the ones responsible for one crucial thing: carrying the supposed dead to Prox, their home village. Those included Isaac's father and Jenna's family, including Felix. Fast forward to the beginning of the end of The Lost Age, an entire duology of an RPG series apart, when the Warriors of Vale finally get access to the northern reaches of Weyard, aka Prox. Upon your arrival there, you immediately notice two things, one being the weather. It's snowing heavily, even surpassing what you'd expect to see at the Weyard equivalent of the North Pole. The second, however, is much more touching than that. It's the theme. Prox's theme was obviously designed to be the exact opposite to that of Vale, the town where the whole story begins. And it worked amazingly. It's impressive the amount of work that went into it. When you start talking with the villagers, they all seem to know Felix, saying that he seems a lot stronger, and that they're proud of him for carrying their burden of lighting the elemental lighthouses. That alone made me want to cry, since I always assumed that Prox would be full of people like Saturus and Agasio, bloodthirsty warriors out for a battle that will satisfy them. But no! You got really nice people, caught up in one really crappy situation. You see, by the time you get there, the effects of Jupiter Lighthouse are starting to be visible, with the overall temperature decreasing and the snowstorms getting stronger and stronger. Add to that the fact that Gaia Falls, basically the Weyard equivalent of the World's Edge, is advancing towards Prox, and you start to understand that you've not been very fair towards them. But the pain only grows as you move along the now snow-covered houses and looks of despair on the Mars Adepts. Eventually, you reach the north end of the village, and you find two things there. First, you find this house that seemingly is away from every other house in the village. When you go to investigate, two people come out of the house talking about some people that were supposed to be there but weren't. You can pretty much guess who they are, but when you talk to them, you get confirmation. The people from Vale have disappeared. That in and of itself should make you worry. But what happens next is actually a fantastic moment. When you finally try to go to the road that leads to Mars Lighthouse, that being the last lighthouse whose beacon is left unlit, you cross yourself with a blockade of young fire adepts talking to both Powell, a sort of military authority of Prox, and the elder of the village, as they waited for the safe return of Agasio and Karst, who had gone north to light the last remaining beacon. Approaching the blockade, Powell notices you immediately and calls you to talk. Felix, alongside Kraden and Isaac, steps forth. Kraden and Isaac introduce themselves, and the people of Prox realize that it was Isaac, the one who had killed off Citrus and Minardi. However, when all was set for a fight, Kraden, being the voice of reason he usually is, intervened and calmed Isaac down. It was at this point that the warriors of Vale explained what happened atop Venus Lighthouse, and, surprisingly, the young Mars adepts acknowledge Isaac's feats and understand his reasoning. Overall, the arrival at the village of the northern reaches of Angara is something that, to this day, stands tall as the second most emotional-driven moment of the duology. It has everything that a Golden Sun classic would have, and I'm glad for that. Going back to my original argument for the order of this top, I like to evaluate the impact that the moment had in the series as a whole. That being said, okay, I need to be honest with you all. Originally, I considered not even including the Lemuria segment into this countdown. Why? Beats me, but the most likely answer is that I had a dumb moment. Anyways, Lemuria! The whole segment within the Lost Age where you finally reach the lost city of Lemuria that has been subject of talk ever since Bobby in the original Golden Sun is mind-blowing, from the very start till the very end. As soon as you get to the isolated island city, you realize that the tales of near-eternal life were true. It is immediately explained why. In Lemuria, time passes at a much slower rate than in the outside world, due to the fact that the alchemy seal did not affect the lost city. After proper exploration of Lemuria, the first thing you do is visit Pierce's uncle. In there, however, we find out something really sad. Something I've discussed previously as being my favorite character moment in Pierce, when he leaves your party to mourn the death of his mother. It is actually quite sad, not going to lie. Not as sad as previous entries on the list, but still sad enough to make me care for it. Anyhow, after the party is reduced to just Felix, Jenna, Sheba, and Kraden, you meet up with Lumpa, the righteous thief and founder of the town of Lumpa. There, you talk with him about the outside world, what he has missed, since he was in Lemuria for a total of 150 years. You bring him the news of both Bobby's death and his grandson, Dodonpa's, evil ways. Although Lumpa enjoyed hearing from the outside world for the first time in ages, he was more interested in the research that Kraden had undertaken. So much in fact that he bursts out of his own home, whose door was jammed, and runs to the palace in order to get our heroes a meeting with King Hydros himself. But not before the reveal that Jenna's and Felix's parents were taken by Citrus and Minardi all those years ago to Prox, something I've discussed in the previous entry. When meeting with the king, Piers returns, accompanying Hydros. He is said to be the oldest and wisest Lemurian alive to date, but his opinions are constantly under assault by Lord Conservato, head of the Senate of Lemuria. Upon the meeting with the King of Lemuria, he shows the party his concerns about what the lack of alchemy is unleashing upon the world, stating that the elements function as some sort of nutrient for Weyar, which has been shrinking ever since alchemy was sealed. Kraden gets astonished, since his were the exact same conclusions he had reached while traveling with Felix and company. Hydros, acknowledging Kraden's potential as a scholar, tasks our heroes of lighting the elemental lighthouses, which at the time were Jupiter and Mars remaining, in order to break the seal on alchemy and restore the balance to Weyar, so it can flourish once again. This is where goodbyes ensue. Piers returns to the party, Hydros grants the party the grind synergy which was required to reach the Western Sea, and they leave Lemuria. However, one last cutscene plays when they're leaving, in which Shiva and Jenna attempt to get a hunch of Piers' age. It was quite entertaining in all honesty. Well, as you might have guessed, this makes it to the list for the ridiculous amount of lore uncovered in such a short segment. The first time I reached it, I was stunned to find out so much about the world of Weyar and about what really happened in the beginning of the series. It was honestly jaw-dropping. That's pretty much it really, besides obviously the sublime music that played throughout the entire segment, but that's already a staple in these entries. The top 3 moments. The pinnacle of memorable scenes, iconic lines, and great character development situations. Only the best of the absolute best will be here. So, let's kick things off with... Now, this... I can't even. After the voyage you take through the first mandatory dungeon of Soul Sanctum, you are greeted to perhaps the best designed room in all of Golden Sun, surpassing even the elemental lighthouses. The protagonists stumble upon this room with the guidance of Kraden, who tells Isaac, Garrett, and Jenna of the treasure they just uncovered. Pure, crystalline orbs of untapped power and potential called the elemental stars. After a brief discussion about the nature of alchemy and about the nature of the elements, Kraden requests of both Isaac and Garrett to fetch the orbs, giving you 4 mithril bags prepared specifically for that occasion. The first half of the segment is honestly fantastic. The setting, music included, gives you the feeling that you're stepping into sacred ground, feeling only replicated 2 times later on in the story of the original Golden Sun, since it is also the music that plays in the area of both Mercury and Venus Lighthouse. The quest you're given once in there also makes you feel like you're interacting with the purest forms of each of the elements, and the fact that the room physically reacts to those interactions makes you feel incredibly calm and relaxed. But then, there's the second half of the segment. Midway through your quest to get all 4 elemental stars, the music stops. You instantly know something's wrong. When Isaac and Garrett turn to the main platform, where Kraden and Jenna were standing, they are shocked to find the antagonists, Citrus and Minardi, just standing there, holding the other 2 hostage. They demand the elemental stars from you, and if you imbue any sense of responsibility into your actions, you will say no. That is when the whole story is given a fantastic twist. A random stranger comes out of the portal wearing a mask and flat out says that he'll serve as the guarantee that the Mars Adepts won't kill either Jenna or Kraden after being handed the stones. At first, your thoughts must be somewhere in the realm of, what? But after a while, Minardi will call him Felix? I could have sworn that that was Jenna's brother's name. Oh my god, it is Felix. How? And why? And how? After Jenna flips out for a bit, Garrett's idiot mode kicks in once again and compromises the mission by either brute forcing the stones out of Isaac's hands, or convincing Isaac that giving the stones to the antagonist is the best option. So Garrett's ready to stupidly deliver the stones to the Mars Adepts, but it's stopped by the king of Golden Sun antagonists himself, Alex. To be fair, by then you had no idea who Alex was or what he was going to do. All eyes were focused on the 2 evil warriors who were trying to do something evil with the stones. Evil. Anyways, plot progresses and you eventually rip the Mars Star, the last elemental star, from the statue that holds it. Immediately, the room starts trembling hard and lava starts to flow through the grounds, where water was flowing freely before. That is when a strange-looking rock appears floating in the middle of the room. Alex shudders in fear, knowing the huge power contained within it, and Kraden calls it the Wise One, guardian of alchemy's secrets. After a swift and quick escape by the antagonist's party, Isaac and Garrett are pretty much left behind to die. However, this is where the Wise One, enters the picture. He tells Isaac to draw out the Mars star, doing something to it that, until the end of the Lost Age, is never explained to the player. Then, he states that the elemental Djinn have returned, and that they are scattering all throughout Wayard. In the end, with no way out, Isaac and Garrett get teleported to Sol Sanctum, where they first found the door to the magnificent elemental star's room. To this day, this is my favorite scene in the original Golden Sun, by far. It paints to the player a perfect picture of what to expect out of this wonderful franchise. As the opening act of the entire story, after number 10 of course, I'd say it does its job tremendously well, almost to the point of divine, which is funny since, you know, the Wise One is considered a god throughout Wayard and stuff. Onto the silver medal it is then. Okay, I've told you guys during the intro to the top 3 moments that being good was not enough to make it. It needed to be something that stood out, something that during every rerun of the game you can't wait to get to, because it's a must-have moment in the series. So, with that said, this next scene is only not number 1 because number 1 in itself is unapproachable in size and grandeur. I give you my favorite cutscene of the duology. 3 simple words. 3 words that define the title of one of the single best moments Golden Sun has to offer, and that completely summarizes what is seen in-game. This scene happens right after Felix's campaign in Jupiter Lighthouse and the fight against Agashu and Karst, where Felix's party saved Isaac and company from the death at the hand of Citrus and Minardi's counterparts. You then compromise with Isaac to meet in Contigo. When you arrive there, it all starts to make sense. But more importantly, it is a wonderful scene. 8 heroes, divided into 2 groups of 4, stand separated through their actions and conducts. What could possibly unify this group? Right from the start, the music kicks in and, in true Golden Sun fashion, it perfectly captures the tension in the room, but also the companionship between both parties. At that point, Isaac and his party didn't really want to fight Felix's party, because they just wanted answers. Most important one being, why had Felix done what he had done? Why did he betray the village in which he was born by handing over the treasure it was protecting throughout all these years? That explanation, however, did not come from Felix himself, since, you know, Felix occupies the mute protagonist role that Isaac had in the original Golden Sun. Instead, it was both Kraven and Jenna the ones to tell the others exactly what happened, and, more importantly, about their remarkable discovery in Meloria. The discussion goes on for a while, with Isaac posing a very interesting and relevant question. If that was why they were alighting the elemental lighthouses, why didn't they tell them? It was something I had been wondering myself ever since Lemuria. I mean, if the final objective of both parties was the same, that being to save the world of Wayard, they could have merged long ago, right? Well, that is what Kraven explains next. By betraying Vale, Felix essentially played the bad guy role. No matter what happened, he would be seen as a traitor and he hoped that he would be the bad guy alone. However, when Jenna was dragged into the whole thing, he started to have second thoughts. That is when he decided to rebel. After setting aside their differences, the 2 groups finally unite. I'll be honest with you all, when I first saw this scene, I started chanting super happily saying, "It's about damn time!" And just, oh, the hype levels on that day blew the scale away. Anyways, back on track. Hama then crashes the party and starts telling them about her family ties with Ivan, although not acknowledged until the group finishes up the task ahead of them, lighting Mars Lighthouse. She explains that Agashu and Karst will fail, that they lack the will to go any further, and that if the warriors of Vale don't start hurrying up, Prox, and eventually the rest of Wayard will be consumed by the black void that are the Gaia Faults. It is then that the cutscene ends, with the full party of 8 joining together at last to fight the common enemy, the world's end. Is there anything else left for me to say? This is the moment that the first 2 stories were converging towards. I believe it was no surprise to anyone who played The Lost Age, but it still managed to make it so hype that it didn't even matter that it was the obvious outcome. I love every single bit about this scene. The different phases are apparent, and what is happening is crystal clear from the moment that heroic theme starts playing. And the determination of both Isaac and Felix in the same team makes it worthy of the number 2 spot. It's just like I said, this is only not number 1 because number 1 in itself remains virtually untouchable. A fantastic and goosebumping scene that manages to catch me off guard every time I replay The Lost Age. Well, it was obvious, wasn't it? A video like this, just like the discussion of the top 10 Golden Sun battle themes, demands an honorable mention section, dedicated to the moments that only didn't make it to the list by a hair's breadth. However, a quick rule. I've limited the choices to 4 honorable mentions, as an anti-going overboard measure. That being said, let's not waste any time. You didn't really think that I would forget a fan favorite now, did you? The village of Garo is undeniably one of the landmarks of the continent of Hassania, and it's not difficult to see why. First of all, it's a werewolf village. Better yet, they're friendly, as in not the type to completely rip your face off. Second, the lore implied in this segment is some of the best in Golden Sun, with connections to both Anemus and Ayers Rock, the elemental rock located just outside of Garo. And finally, there's the obvious pick, the real-world satire. In the world of Weyard, werewolves are cast aside as being a cursed race, and because of that, their race was driven to near extinction, only existing, as far as I'm aware, in the small, isolated village. All of this combined would have made a perfect entry in this list. That is, if the prologue didn't exist. That is why it was a main priority upon the reveal of the honorable mentions. Oh yeah, the main competition of Weyard is upon us. There's a reason people in-game travel from all around the world to watch this event every year, and I'm going to be honest with you, I used to utterly despise this part of the game. That was until I realized what was actually happening in this segment. A full-on free-for-all where the winner was granted eternal glory and praise from Lord Bobby himself. The magnificence of Tolby is on full display throughout the gladiator's journey, and it is incredible. Even though it didn't make it to the top 10, it certainly deserves a spot in the 4 honorable mentions available. Well, that was an unexpected turn. Until this point, you had taken Briggs somewhat seriously. I mean, he was accused of piracy, which is no light crime. He flat out admitted to have stolen money from Madra and other surrounding towns. But this, I was not expecting this. This blows that all away, and you finally realize that he is not to be taken seriously. I do not think I need to elaborate a lot for this one, so here, have some visual evidence. Alright, before you say I didn't have enough good moments to throw in here, let me clarify one thing. This is probably one of the funniest scenes of the entire franchise. Oh man, I didn't think Golden Sun would have the guts to pull off such a stupid moment, but here it is. Upon Karst's death threat to Isaac's party, Felix and the rest of the group are left wondering what will happen to their rivals in the future. It is at that point where Sheba drops a particularly smart remark about the relationship between Isaac and Jenna. Not only does it confirm my suspicions from the first game, but Jenna's reaction is absolutely priceless. She turns bright red, symbolism of her element, and starts mumbling "stupid Sheba." What else is there to say? I'm gonna leave you with the text on screen, which I'm gonna probably add. With those out of the way, it's finally time. This is it. The absolute best of the best. The top of the mountain. The literal embodiment of perfection within the Golden Sun universe. In my eyes, at least. Many of you who know me must have a clue about the nature of this entry. With that said, I'll shut up briefly to honor the greatness that is the #1 spot. No, I'm not crying. What makes you ask such a ridiculous question? I will not. I cannot. Oh, why even bother trying to hide it? It's beautiful! So, yeah, the #1 spot is the obviously cliche ending #1, and if you want my opinion, I couldn't care less. This is an ending that truly deserves the praise it gets. And I'm not ashamed to say that I followed the master on this one. I'm not even sure if I'm mentally prepared enough for the task of describing this entire segment to my audience, but for the sake of honoring properly this colossal ending, I sure as hell can try. Right after the final boss of the duology, you're greeted to 3 characters laying on the ground, on the cusps of death. It doesn't take a genius to recognize them right away, but Kraden steps in anyways. Before the fight, realizing something ghastly, Kraden tried to stop the Warriors of Vale from fighting Doom Dragon. And now, it was pretty clear why. When Jenna and Sheba go in to try and help the people, Kraden tries to stop them, saying it will only bring pain to Jenna's heart. And indeed it does. It turns out that the people who were Doom Dragon were actually Felix's parents, therefore Jenna's parents, as well as Isaac's father. I've discussed this on the #5 spot. Citrus and Minardi brought them there. However, if that wasn't bad enough, it's at this point when Jenna, the most analytical and collected of the Warriors of Vale, completely crumbles, emotionally speaking. She doesn't even try to reason this one, as she flat out refuses to believe that, after all the perils they had gone through, all the lighthouses, all the jobs they were forced to do, it had all been in vain, thanks to the machinations of the most powerful adept in Wayar, Alex. Alex is clearly pointed as the guilty party in this situation, even though the transformation of the people of Vale into Doom Dragon was the Wise One's doing, since it was the Mercury adept the one who had set all this in motion 3 years before. Even though the party was inconsolable, Isaac stepped up. He was the one to say that their parents would have understood the situation, since they were fighting for the fate of the world. Despite their deaths, the Warriors of Vale were one elemental star throw away from breaking the seal on alchemy and saving the world. It is then that Felix finally finishes the nightmare for good, by casting the Mars star into the beacon. Then, it began. The elemental lighthouses became connected, serving as communication centers. It is first seen with the children of Inno, Mia's disciples, who talk to our heroes through Mercury Lighthouse. It is there that we learn that it was the Wise One who appeared in the dreams of these young children, telling them to warn everybody. Something dangerous was going to happen in the lighthouses. It was then the turn of Hama, Hyven's sister, to speak from Jupiter Lighthouse. She transmitted the same exact warning from the Wise One, which made it very clear to the party that his motives weren't exactly what they thought they were at first, seeing how he was responsible for the situation they were in now. After that, it started. The formation of the Golden Sun, Getting their stuff together, the party pulls through and somehow manages to clear the lighthouse with Felix's parents and Isaac's father. It then cuts to Prox, where our heroes are welcomed and praised for their efforts. After all, they did save the village and the world. Goodbyes ensue and the group is all ready to go, with everyone alive. Somehow, the blast of energy emitted from the beacon of Mars revitalized the spirits of the ones near death and brought them back. After a short talk between all people present, eventually it gets to just Isaac, Felix, and Kraden. Isaac asks why the Wise One would pull off such a trick on them, knowing everyone would survive after that. Not even Kraden could answer it. Nobody could. The talk between the three leaders was actually pretty interesting, as it revealed a new side of the main protagonists, Isaac and Felix. After all they had been through, their confidence was renewed and their hopes reignited. It seemed that after everything, after what would have been the end of the world for many, they held together and pulled through the toughest of times. The final cutscene ends, and you hear it. You wonder if your ears may somehow be deceiving you. But no, it indeed is! The Golden Sun is rising! The credits start to roll, and it hits you. The game is ending. This amazing story is finally coming to a close. Part of you feels sad. You'll always remember the adventure, but it will be those memories that will prevent another reaction like this. Genuine and raw emotion. However, it is not yet done. For once the first list rolls by, you see the peak of Mount Aleph, where Alex was said to be. And, true enough to form, that's where he is, climbing his way up to the top. Throughout the credits, cutscene by cutscene, the game shows us the results of our actions, by showing us each of the elemental lighthouses in Wayar shooting a powerful orb of energy corresponding to its elements. It would only be fitting that it would all end where it started. Sol Sanctum. We then see Alex receiving the light of the Golden Sun, expecting it to turn him into the supreme being of Wayar, capable of bending the elements to its will. Of course, his plan backfires when the Wise One shows up. So, we can resume what happened next using this.
You are dead! Not a big surprise!
Mount Aleph then starts to sink into the earth and takes Alex along with it. However, when you think this game is finally over, you see a text box show up with Jenna's character on it. That's right, the heroes were headed for Vale. After a short dialogue, Felix was tasked to go with Isaac and Kyle to check the status of Vale. Well, we had just seen Vale getting swallowed by the earth, but it was a major heartbreak for the group. That was, until they heard someone behind them. Everyone got out safely for the surprise of the Warriors of Vale, and this leads to my favorite image of the duology. No, I'm not crying. How am I kidding? This scene deserves tears. Okay, calm down, Eduardo. You need objectivity for this one. And that's it. That was the moment. I feel that I actually have no need to explain myself on this one. To this day, this ending is still my favorite video game ending of all time. Granted, I haven't played great classics such as Fire Emblem or Kingdom Hearts, but I can assure you, it will be extremely hard to top this one. And with that said, this countdown is complete. Oh man, the emotional roller coaster that this was. I mean, the other countdowns provided similar feels, but this was something on its league, like out on its own. It has nothing to do with the other two. It was just that powerful. I mean, just the #1 spot, I crumbled like twice in the recording, and it was amazing to feel that. I got nothing to say, honestly. I had a blast making this video because I got to try out all new things like more advanced animation, and honestly, the programming, I needed a break. I have been working on it non-stop and it just fries the neurons. Anyways, let me hear your thoughts on my opinion in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, leave a like and consider subscribing if you are new to the channel. Link to my Discord server will be in the description, as well as the mentions to the sources of the footage and audio I used. Huge shout out to the people on screen. You guys are amazing. You have no idea of the help you're getting to me. Like, you guys are the reason these keep popping up in your recommended list. Or maybe not, I don't know. It just pops up. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and thank you also for the almost 100 subscribers, guys. That is insane. You all deserve a huge thanks. Until next time, peace.